Hello everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to talk about something I do endear and love over the recent years, and that is the Yakuza series. And of course, another recent game that I've really liked is Judgment. Really liked it for what it was. I gave it like around a 9 out of 10. I think it was a very good flavor of its own, and not just a flavor of the season. I think Judgment deserves a place for sort of that Yakuza sort of tree, I guess you can say. And at this point, there's been some really interesting things that happened very recently. So during the announcement of Lost Judgment, which is the sequel for Judgment, which will be releasing simultaneously worldwide, which is really cool, in September 24th, or at least around that time. Anyways, around that same time, it was confirmed that Yakuza is going to permanently become a turn-based series, while Judgment is actually going to become that action-based series. It's going to succeed and carry that torch from the Yakuza series. So Yakuza has always been like that action-based series with over-the-top moves, combat, with our boy Kiryu Kazuma, or Kazuma Kiryu. Anyway, he's always been that character who not only is a badass with his words, but a badass with his fists and his feet and whatever is around him, right? With trash cans, poles, stabs, even a car or motorcycle, right? He is ridiculous, and he's always will be remembered as that badass Yakuza man. He even can mess people up with a microwave if it's around. Anyway, so Kiryu has always been that character who who really carried the series, right? Throughout 1 all the way through 6, and of course in between there was 0, which was the prequel for it, which is probably regarded as the best Yakuza game still, which I do agree with. I personally think it's still the best. Had a great combination of just action, the gameplay, right? The story was still pretty good for what it was. The gameplay side of things, you can play as Majima, and Majima had quite a bit to offer, for himself as well. Anyway, it's always been that sort of series throughout, and there was that, until there was that one game, right, very recently, which was Yakuza 7, aka Like a Dragon, with Ichiban as the new main character after Kiryu's story ended in 6, which I think that it ended appropriately for our guy Kiryu. So it kind of is funny to me that I believe this started as a sort of April Fool's joke, but they kind of went with it, and they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna go back to Yakuza, to that beat of an action game that we've known to grow and love and stuff like that, But now with this announcement, I think it's kind of funny that they were like, yeah, actually, with how good, Like a Dragon succeeded, we're gonna make this into a turn-based RPG series now. So, that's kind of very interesting. But at least they are doing something with that too. They're not just burying that action-based gameplay 6 feet under. They're doing something with it, and they're carrying that same thing with Judgment. And Judgment is going to carry that torch as that action game from Yakuza, and it will pretty much go on with it. My only concern is how long can they keep this up with Judgment? How long can they like make this storyline interesting, fresh, right, with Yagami as our main character? Will Yagami go through another change as well? Like, will he, be out of the storyline at some point and someone else will come in, right? I don't know. These things happen, right? We've already seen it once with Kiryu. His story ended at some point, and with him pretty much is the action-based series that we've grown to sort of love over time so much. It made the game so much more memorable with that action gameplay with Kiryu, with his super strength, pretty much. Like, it's ridiculous, but it always made you feel like a manly badass with Kiryu. And now that Yagami and his storyline and the whole judgment thing is going to be where it's at, it's definitely not going to be the same, no matter what. Of course, Yagami is his own character, Kiryu is his own character, Ichiban is his own character. There's going to come to a point where it's going to start to be repetitive, right? So I think it was, in the grand scheme of things, the right move. As a little souring it can be with some fans, and I do understand where they're coming from, as long as they're not ridiculous with their opinions. But I do see it as a move that makes sense overall, because we're gonna grow tired of it, and our sort of impressions and opinions will start to sort of wane down for Kiryu, and I think we don't want that, right? I think we want Kiryu to kind of end as the same sort of badass that we've always grown to love at the end of this. So all the way, from 0 all the way up to 6, he has grown to be a very, very great person, character, and fighter at this point. He grew literally for physically and mentally, and that always will forever sort of carry on with him. Being that badass all around with his words and his fists. So, with his hands, throw them hands. Anyways, yeah. So I just think that this is the right move of it. And Yagami is going to carry on with that. But, it is to say that we'll never get this sort of same sort of satisfaction or sort of panache, that's sort of manly panache that we've gotten with Kiryu. I mean, there's always going back to those games again, but like, we'll never see a brand new game with Kiryu at this point with that action based gameplay. Even Ichiban won't get a piece of that, unfortunately. I would love to have seen Ichiban in that sort of format. Maybe we'll see Ichiban and Yagami collide with each other and beat each other up, in some sort of crossover storyline, right? So that could be an interesting sort of game, where it's these two types of gameplay will collide at some point, and it all takes place in the same freaking city for all we know. So for crying out loud, it's in Kamurocho. So Kamurocho has always been that central city for our heroes in this whole sort of universe. But yeah, back to the point though. While Yagami does bring his own flavor of being a badass, he's that nimble, agile fighter with his acrobatics. He's he can move around really fast comparing to Kiryu, but Kiryu has always been that stern, that he's brick shit brick house, you know what I mean, like that built manly badass motherfucker, right? So who can literally lift motorcycles over his head and smash them over the bad guy, and somehow the bad guy, well, maybe he is dead, but anyway. But we'll never get that same feeling again, and that's something I will dearly miss. But it's not going to be the same no matter what, because it's Yagami, and then it's the same with Ichiban, and then so it makes Kiryu all the more special, I think. So before I put myself in a loop, I think that's pretty much the grand scheme of things. That's like the gist of my opinion. I think it's just interesting overall that they wanted to keep this Yakuza series mostly action based, but now at this point, because of the success of Like a Dragon with its turn-based gameplay, which I do think it's still fun. I still haven't completely finished the storyline just yet, which I really need to do at some point, but I think it's really fun for what it is. It introduces something cool with the cinematics, with the cinematic attacks and stuff like that. Even at some point, freaking Ichiban summons a satellite laser, the hammer, if you want to call it that. You know what I mean? It still has that over-the-top ridiculousness in those games. So I'm happy with that. As long as the story, the quality, and everything else is still preserved in those games, I'm fine with that. And they're not completely burying the action-based stuff. 6 Feet Under, they're gonna put that over to Judgment. My only concern is that how long will Judgment be successful, and the storyline will stay fresh and all that stuff. Hopefully they can do that with Yagami for at least a decent amount of time, and we'll see from there whether this whole thing will continue or not. I want to see Ichiban and Yagami collide. Like I definitely want to see them in a crossover. Maybe Kiryu can come in occasionally, right, as like sort of a important side character, because he's retired. He's completely retired. You know what I mean? He wants to live his own life, right? So give the guy the rest. Especially with how much stuff he's went through, and how 6 ended that whole story with Kiryu. I think it makes sense in that grand scheme of things. With him kind of also the action that he brought retired with him as well. So Ichiban will bring the turn-based aspects, and Yagami will bring his own sort of action combat as well. His own flavor, especially with the new style that's coming in, which is the snake style. You know what I mean? Kind of reminds me of Snake from One Punch Man with with his hands like this. I think it's really funny. Not that I've seen the gameplay by any means, but that's what it kind of comes to mind anyway. So I think again, to sum it up, overall I think it's the right move. I respect it, at least to I guess put it nicely. I will miss what Yakuza brought in the first place, which is that adrenaline, that badass feeling. Just you're in control of Kiryu, smashing down his opponents, slamming them down. My favorite move from Kiryu will always be from the Dragon style, that the chokehold he does, and he converts it into a power bomb and just slams him down. That's always, to me, the best move for Kiryu. It's such a cool looking move. I'm a sucker for wrestling moves. And just seeing him doing that is always going to be just satisfying to see from Kiryu, for me anyway. Ichiban won't get any piece of that, unfortunately. Maybe if he ever makes it into the crossover with Yagami and Judgment in general, like maybe he'll get wrongly accused of something and thrown into jail or prison, and then Yagami will try to bail him out or something. I don't know. They could come up with something like that to make an excuse for a crossover to happen, and having the two gameplays sort of collide somehow. Anyway, that's like I guess a dream of mine, I guess, within that sort of franchise with Yakuza, and also with Judgment. So we'll see about that in the future. I'm still excited for what they have in store for Lost Judgments and whatever future Yakuza game they'll come up with with Ichiban and stuff like that. So still optimistic. I'm still excited. It's gonna be different. It'll keep it fresh. At least we won't see Kiryu being dragged through the ground and being like a dead horse and stuff like that, and milk dry or whatever analogy you want to come up with. Kiryu can pretty much stay retired. He'll have his rest and all that fun stuff. So anyways, that's my opinion on things. I think it's cool, and all that fun stuff. So what's your guys' comments about Yakuza being turn-based from this point on, and Judgment carrying the torch as that action beat-em-up sort of gameplay for the rest of the series? So, or rest of our time, pretty much. So leave me those comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Really helps out. Really appreciate it, guys. And this has been the Hawke Talks on Yakuza being turn-based from this point on, with Judgment carrying that action-based torch when it comes to gameplay. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.